you need me to continue. I can hide it, but
You can hide
I
it.
can hide that now and you'll manage it. Okay,
Yep.
great. Perfect. That gives us a good look at Doug. You're who we see right now, Doug. Okay.
Summary background.
So everybody should have a packet and on it is an agenda. I'm going to be welcoming you all, taking a few more minutes for that in just a moment, but this is an official meeting of the Planning Commission. I will say that we have a quorum of planning commissioners present, so we can conduct our business. I want to see if there happens to be for the agenda anything for public comment not on the agenda. Hearing none, then I will move on to say that most of the agenda, in fact, all of it, is about the comprehensive energy plan, and we will be undertaking the items there, introductions, doing an overview about the project, coordinating, and then Chris Campany is here. We'll get a chance to introduce himself, executive director of the Wyndham Regional Commission, to give us an overview on his experience doing these projects in coordination with regional planning. Then I just will introduce Vanessa Long here, Commissioner, who is project lead for the Comprehensive Village Plan, working with me on that. And she'll be introducing some of these items. We'll be reviewing a draft RFP for a consultant. And when we review the draft RFP, that itself says a lot about the project. So I'm going to defer some of our details about the project to reviewing the RFP. Hopefully you've had a chance to take a glance at it. That is our to-do, is to make sure that we have a chance to get your feedback on that. And it's also a way of helping you be oriented to the project and how we're going to go about it. We really want to make sure there's time in the meeting at the end for you to all just share your ideas, your suggestions, your thoughts for the project, kind of popcorn, because we'll be taking a break till March till we meet next, and we'd really like to hear from you, what you take from this meeting, and incorporate that into our planning. And we'll adjourn at 8. This meeting is being recorded. The packet that you were handed, I'll just go over that quickly. You will find an orientation packet that we'll be talking about here soon.
Sue,
Yes.
did you already go around and introduce everybody?
We will do that. I'm gonna get everybody
Just checking.
agenda and what's in front of you, and then we're gonna do the introductions. Thank you, Chris. Very important. But I almost always forget to go over the packet. So the packet will review with you about the project and how to participate. You will see a consultant RFP in there. You will also see my packet's incomplete. How about that? Let me look at the packet. Attached behind the orientation packet, you'll see our FAQ, or frequently asked questions about the project, then the consultant RFP. Then you will see a list of consultants with some thoughts on how well they meet certain criteria. Then you will see, for reference, the shortest version of our housing needs assessment that we did in an action plan, which is very relevant to this project. And then there's a list of upcoming events on economic development and housing that I thought we might like to know about. So that's that. And let me begin just by asking the commissioners to introduce themselves, and then we'll go around the table. So
Yeah, I'm Vanessa Long, planning commissioner.
Mary Tomford, planning commission clerk.
Phil Bannister, Planning Commission.
So there's one other planning commissioner who wasn't able to make it tonight. Maybe he'll be a little late, Andrew Morrison. And so then as we go around, please say your name, say something about, where you're from, but we have it in our orientation package, but something about that. And one thing about why this project matters to you, just why are you here? And maybe Connie, can we begin with you?
Sure. I'm Connie Richards. I'm a Putney resident, and I'm particularly interested in senior housing.
I'm Meg Stallop. I work for BDCC, and I'm really here for this process. I think village planning is a really important tool to help communities pick a direction, pick great projects, and then move forward.
Hi, Dan Burry, Landmark College. Fairly new to the area, so way to get involved in the community and also see what Landmark can do to help support the village.
Christopher Arian, I'm interested in affordable housing in the community, and also just in general, trying to find ways to strengthen the ties within the community.
Karen Astley. I am the town manager for the town of Putney, zoning administrator, and other titles. I am here
We'll be here all night.
to support this group, the planning commission, and I've always said, if anyone is willing to do the work and go the extra mile, I will support them in any project in the town of Putney.
She's good to the word.
Yeah, because I always need people helping, so. There are a lot of stakeholders here, and we need to work together.
You got too much time on your hands. I'm Rob Kanemeyer. I design and build outdoor spaces. And it's about time I got involved in Putney planning.
I'll just know that you've been thinking about village landscape for a long time, contributing to it in some ways, but that you had a lot of deep thinking about that. So it's great, Rod, for you to bring that here to this process.
Including right out the front door.
Right out the front door
It's true.
and outside over here.
Hey, I'm Chris Campton, Executive Director, Wyndham Regional Commission, live in Townsend, and I'm here to cheer you all on and answer questions, and we'll be available to answer questions as you all go through the process. Hopefully you'll get a great consultant, and probably our role will be pretty minimal, but we're also a good resource sometimes for the consultants to provide them some larger context and other like base map information and other things like that.
You all have very tremendous mapping resources. It's really a huge value to our community and others.
My name's Dylan Hopkins. I'm a local contractor that recently made Putney my forever home with my young family. And kind of cool being involved in a community where you can be involved in the community. And we plan on growing here, so it's in my best interest to go ahead and get involved early.
Thank you, Dylan.
I'm Maria Shidlamita. I'm an extension assistant professor with the University of Vermont, and my research background is in community development and affordable housing policy. I met Sue at a housing development meeting, and she's talking about this project, and I was really excited to hear about how local communities were articulating their own housing needs and kind of making the case for the vision of housing that they wanted to see in their communities. So I was really grateful that Sue let me come and join this group, even though I'm not a resident of Putney. I live in Bennington. But I'm excited to be here with you all and maybe provide kind of some broader context and perspective.
Thank you, Marian. It's great to have you here.
Yeah.
Pretty dry.
I'm Terry Elling. I represent Putney Commons, which is a co-housing community, one of 22 in the state of Vermont. We're right off Main Street. There are 12 residents there. And I'm particularly interested, as are my neighbors, in seeing the downtown area retail and services thrive and grow.
Great. Thank you. It's good to have you here, Terry.
Catherine Stefan. I am a Putney resident. I am also the executive director of Yellow Barn and here representing the business community also through Discover Putney. I am here, I guess, primarily for Yellow Barn, and that's because Yellow Barn recently acquired about 4 acres of green space here on Main Street, most of it right there. And I want to make sure that our planning, that Yellow Barn continues to be informed by the town. And the Yellow Barn can also continue to inform town planning. Absolutely, downtown revitalization is near and dear to my heart.
My name is Barry Stockwell. I'm a lifetime resident of Putney and a founder of Next Stage Arts Project. So this town has always been very special to me, and I'd like to think the Next Stage is pretty important to the town. We're celebrating our 15th year, and yeah, many more to go.
Barry, tell us about something, why this project matters to you. You're showing up here today and I thank you for your time, and what got you out of your house at midnight?
Well, I had to be down the Next Stage anyhow.
You can do that.
It's so important, how connected Next Stage is to the rest of the area of the town and all that happens. We're just trying to build those bridges between our organization and everyone else, and very concerned about what happens downtown and how we keep it vibrant. It's been a roller coaster over 68 years that I've been here. So it needs attention, and I think Next Stage can really play a role.
Great. Thank you. Agreed.
Hi, I'm Natalie Dreyer. I am the new executive director of Next Stage as of 3 months and like 2 weeks or something like that. 3 months. And I am a new resident of Putney. I live across the street now. So I am, deeply invested in choosing this place and what it means to choose this place. And then how do you continue to build the community and involve yourself in the community that already exists here. And so when Sue was talking to me about this, I was like, that makes sense. It brings together both wanting to build this community and also what Barry was talking about, all about how that connects to Next Stage as well. But, I am part of a wonderful co-living situation in the house across the street. And so I live there with my 2 best friends and their little 6-month-old who just rolled over for the first time before I got here. So trying not to run back and watch her do that. So thinking both outside the box, but then also just about how to, and knowing that it took us a really long time to find housing here as well. And that they were looking for housing for probably over a year before I moved up here, and the only way we could do it is if we all did it together. So trying to find ways that we can get creative around that. And then now on a different perspective, now that we have done it, how hard it is to do it with 3 adults on paperwork and how much more complicated the world is to get them to understand that. So bringing in a couple different perspectives.
Thank you. Welcome. If you want to say, I introduced you a little bit, but you could say something about this project and why it's important to you and the commission.
Barry, you surprised me with your 68 years or something, of whatever, maybe I'm aging you. But it got me to thinking that those of us who have been in Putney for a long time, I came in the late 60s, have seen the changes in the downtown from being quite vital when Wyndham College was here, lots of kids. I was a young person at that time too. And then the diminishment, other sort of small periods when something would happen and there'd be a restaurant or two or some commercial activity that would sort of liven things up again. But it does seem like it's been a slow decline. And with the paper mill closing, definitely it feels like there's been a big transition. I've been on the planning commission for a long time, couple decades. So it's been an interest of mine to the village and its the changing aspects of the village. I hope that we can get somewhere with a consultant and begin to define some, really a really clear path.
I'm going to give Rye a chance to introduce herself. Themselves, I'm sorry. And they're participating remotely. So Rye, if you could join us and introduce yourself, please.
Sure. Hey, everyone. I'm Rye. I use they, them pronouns. I am here as a parent. I'm also a foster parent. I am interested in affordable housing, accessible housing for folks with disabilities. Also, I'm interested in, creating systems for housing renovations for folks who have a hard time affording that, so people can stay in their housing, and that they don't have to leave their housing for, different mechanisms. Yeah, I guess that's a good start.
Great. Thank you. And I will just note that Rye has participated in two of other project advisory committees on the housing needs assessment and also currently in our zoning bylaw update. So they are a real benefit and a special participant in helping us shape what we come up with. Doug, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. So I'm also part of those previous other planning commission committees as well as the housing task force. And the reason I'm interested in this is I've been pondering and deliberating in my own mind what is my vision for Putney, and I hope to hear from everybody what their vision is, whatever form that might take. But I want to throw into the mix that we have a crisis coming with people moving from the global south into the global north, and I think that's going to impact on us in the next 10 to 20 and beyond years, because it's going to be too hot for people to live for 2 billion people, and they're going to be coming this way. But that's an opportunity for employment, employees, staffing, and we're going to have appropriate jobs for those people because they're probably not going to be fluent in English. So that's my main concern, is that we think ahead toward that.
Thank you, Doug. And I'm going to give Vanessa and then Mary a chance to say something about their role and their interest.
Sure. So I am a mostly lifelong Putney resident. Grew up here as a kid, then left for my mostly young adult years and came back about 15 years ago. It was interesting thinking about Next Stage being 15 years old. That's the same year I think that I came back to Putney. And raised kids of my own who are now teenagers. So I have also seen a lot of kind of change in the town too. And I'm really excited about this project. I'm really excited about this group of people, as I'm really impressed by the kind of breadth and depth of knowledge. Sue's asked me to introduce this project, but as I'm listening to people talk, I'm hearing that there's people that have been involved in all the stuff kind of working up to this project in a much deeper level. So feeling a little bit of an imposter here. But I'm really excited to see it through.
All the perspectives, yeah. Mary.
So for those that know me, I work at M&T Bank across the street, which means that I get to interact with a lot of our community members here in Putney. And it means that I am kind of hearing a lot of the stories about trouble finding housing, or those who are struggling with kind of how Putney is right now. And joined the Planning Commission because I knew that that would be something of value to bring to the Planning Commission itself. And excited about this project because not only for the residents, but also for the businesses that are here, making sure that we are developing appropriately.
I will mention that there is at least one other member of this committee, and many of them know her, and that's Eleni Maxikuli, who is the Putney Diner owner. She had a meeting till 7, and she will join us as soon as she can this evening, which I'll be here in person. So talk about a busy person. And we may be bringing a few other people to the committee. I guess I should just say something about myself, though. I lived in Putney. I went to Wyndham College last class out in 1978. I lived here from 76 to 78, married and had kids here. And in 1983, I really needed housing and job for my family and my kids. We could not put it together. We tried for over a year, and I was so sad when we finally had to leave, and we went to the Boston area where I had my career, I thought, for 5 years, and So 3.5 years ago, I finally moved back full-time, though I've had a house here since 2014. I was always coming back to Putney. There was no question about it. And I was on the planning commission, actually, as maybe the first female and the youngest one, in 1982. And I saw the power of what a planning commission could mean for this town. We stared down a minimum security prison, for what was gonna be Wyndham College. And we turned it around to be landmark, because people said in the community, if we don't move forward with an idea and invite something in, we don't know what we're gonna get, maybe a maximum security prison, right? So, and that was actually a question that was answered at that information meeting. Could this minimum security prison become maximum security? And the answer was yes. And so then the town vote was like 90% no, thank you. Nobody wanted it. But I did see the power of the community coming together, the vision that they needed something, and people working together to make it happen. And I think we're at a very interesting point in our town's history and story. We're ready to do that again, and make something very exciting happen. We're really poised for it. And so we've done a bunch of work, and I believe this process will bring us there. We will be bringing a couple more people into the process. We're a little short in some of the perspectives, so we're doing a little more recruiting, make sure we have affordable housing and housing providers here a little more squarely than we do. So with that, let's go into a very brief project overview. Vanessa, shall we do that? And we have this orientation packet that I think is helpful.
I just have a quick question.
Yes.
You said that we aren't meeting again until March, but there are 2 other meetings on the list.
Right, the meetings, so thank you, Christopher, that's a really good question. Whenever I do an agenda, this is a planning commission meeting. And to keep the public informed, I always put upcoming next planning commission meetings. This is a project of the planning commission. We have other projects going on right now. And as you'll see in the schedule, the reason why we're reviewing the RFP today is we want to issue this next week and try to have a consultant in place. And that takes a couple of months so that we can begin in March. So this
So that
is
we would all come back together as a.
in March, when the consultant is here, but it has been our practice to try to get input right up front before we go out, and then it goes on pause and you can enjoy the winter, and then when it's mud season, we'll thank you, Christopher, that was a really good question.
Yeah, so again, thank you all for being here and being on time, and excited to do this work. This project is kind of the outcome of a series of other projects, some of which a few of you have been involved in this whole time. So feel free to jump in and correct me if I say something wrong. I'm still relatively new to this process. But it really started with a VCRD project, our Future Putney project, which was the beginning of the kind of envisioning. That led into the town plan, which has, if any of you have not looked at the town plan, I do encourage it. In the RFP, the draft RFP, we did put, a whole sections that are directly from the town plan, part of the implementation side of the town plan, with just a community-based envisioning of how we want Putney to be, but as, not just the village, the whole town of Putney. So really, one of the outcomes of the town plan was to develop a comprehensive village plan. So when we're talking about village, we're talking about kind of where we are right now. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's from Putney Central School to Putney Landing, more or less, and then up Route 5 to Landmark-ish. So that's the area that we're talking about when we're talking about the comprehensive village plan.
I will add that in addition to that, our project is to identify adjacent areas for village expansion so that we can support the housing and economic development that we want. So correct about where we are, and then we'll be talking about adjacent areas, because that won't happen overnight, but you have to start by saying what we want and where. So that would be part of the project.
Right. And so in the town plan, things that were really identified as priorities for Putney were housing, which I think we've all talked about in different ways. So that's affordable housing, that's mixed use housing, that's housing for people of all different ages, for younger families, for seniors, and everybody in between. So
And shared housing.
shared housing, yeah, that's right. And so that's not just building new housing, but that's also looking for opportunities to renovate, revitalize, make housing more dense in the sense that we have more units kind of per structure as well, and ADUs as well. But then also balancing that with green space, making Putney a place that we all want to be. And part of that is developing a recreation plan as well. And thinking about other ways that make our community more accessible. So we're talking sidewalks, parking, EV chargers, bike lanes, whatever is going to be attractive for how we want to live in this space. So yeah, and then out of the town plan, there was also the housing needs assessment. And so that's where much of the housing recommendations comes from. And see if I can read my notes. So it is the planning commission's practice really to develop these advisory committees to lead each step of the way, because we understand that community engagement is really is how we get buy-in for these projects. What we don't want is to go through an entire process with no community engagement and then present it to the community and have it rejected, right? So that's really what this process is going to be focused on, especially at the beginning, starting in March, is really a process of community engagement and trying to get people inspired to participate. And so that's something that we're going to be leaning on the project advisory committee to do, is to, you all each have your own networks of people. How do we get people involved in your own networks as well? Not just the people in this room. How do we bring them to the table to get people excited about this? And the goal really is to come out with a map, essentially, of these are the places where we identify areas for development. These are some policies to drive economic opportunities and economic development and business growth. And then actionable items that we can say, all right, and these are the steps that we can take to start making these things happen, to make it real. When we have a clear village plan, as I'm sure many of you know probably better than I do, that unlocks resources for us. So it's much easier to go to a funding sources, either public or private, and say, we want X number of dollars to be able to do this project. We have community buy-in, we have select board approval. We're ready to go. We just need your cash, right? And so if we have that vision, then we can really leverage that vision to be able to get resources to help drive that growth.
And I'll add that an important resource and all that are relationships.
Yeah.
Right, because we're going to be talking about like real parcels of land. What's going to happen where? And those are going to be conversations we want to begin about what could be part of our housing solution, whether renovating, expanding, or new construction. There's room for all of us here. So it'll be naming names and looking at real things and talking about how can we actually make something different happen here. So Christopher.
So it sounds like what you're really talking about, what we're really talking about, is sort of a radical reworking of the town in terms of solving so many of the problems we have for people who work for Putney School or Landmark or the co-op or whatever, where, virtually nobody who wants to live here can find a place to live. So, I mean, that sounds pretty amazing that we can be actually doing something like this that would have a phenomenal long-term impact on the town.
Yes, yeah. I think we need to think big. Thank you for that, Christopher, because this is not a little idea, and it's an integrated, comprehensive idea, as Vanessa was describing. There's many pieces to it. And so finding a consultant that will help, who's done this before with other communities, and understands those parts, and how to do that quickly, because I think the visioning we'll hear more from Chris Campany about how we might do this visioning. But all the pieces, all the pieces and get them in there. So yeah, it is radical, I think, in that way. We've never, the one thing I know of that Putney's done where they had a sort of long-term plan and realized the vision is Putney Meadows in terms of housing. That the town, it's a collaboration with community members that made Putney Meadows a reality 30 years ago.
Yeah.
But that was one parcel. So let's see. I wanted to say a couple of things about this orientation packet. So on second page, you'll see a list. And I've from your nomination forms on how I know you, I've added a couple of words about you, just so anybody who's family member who's on this committee, you have names and this, and I did get permission from most everybody to share your email addresses. So we will be sharing that in the future, so that you have that. And then you'll see on page 3, sort of a look, a little gap analysis, like, well, we were looking for a lot of different perspectives, but that's what we need here. And there are some places where our committee still needs strengthening. Local housing providers, local affordable housing providers, housing solution organizations. We have a couple of housing providers here, but most one affordable housing provider. But we're kind of limited in that. And we did have a talk with Wyndham Housing Trust, and they would recommend some other folks. So we're doing some recruitment in that area. And at a high level, I just want to go over the schedule so that you have an idea. We talked a little bit about it. We have this meeting and then we go on pause. The consultant selection committee is in the room, and that would be the town manager, Karen, Vanessa, and myself. We'll be getting the RFP out, reviewing them, interviewing, and selecting a consultant. We'll come back. The plan is to come back to the planning commission meeting in February, just to present that to the planning commission, which has an official role to approve the consultant selection and recommend the contract be approved. So by the time we get to March, we'll bring this committee back together with the consultant and begin. And the idea is that after some initial work, planning and looking at things and preparing, that in April, possibly late March, we would do the community engagement to revitalize, to vision, the visioning exercise about what we want, and do that right up front as an inspiration, as a way to bring people together. And that should be a very energizing kind of activity. And wrapping that up in a fairly quick fashion, right? It's not going to drag on. And then go into this next phase of how are we going to realize this vision? What are the policies? What are the actions? What can we learn from other communities? What is the state offering? What are the resources that we can pull from? And that might be some other community engagement, right? That we all learn about it, not just people here at this table. And out of that, by the end of June, we should have not only our vision, but our plan of how we're going to de-risk and encourage housing and economic development. But what does that look like? And the intent would be to go to the select board with our final report. Of course, we'll keep them informed all along the way, but to ask them, to approve or adopt that plan so that the recommendations can move forward. And we would be done in July. So that's the idea. And in some ways, July begins a third phase, but this committee will be thanked and will be finished. But that's actually to now do the work, right? Implement the recommendations. Who do we need to meet with? I don't know what that looks like yet. We need to see what comes, and then we will have a process to move that forward. So that's the high level schedule. And so we're asking you to be here with us till the end of June, and maybe a select board meeting in July, something like that, if you would come to that. We know that July schedules are hard. People do other things, but that's the idea of what we have. So any questions about what I've talked about in terms of the committee composition or schedule? Chris?
This is being supported by a municipal planning grant, right?
Yes.
And the clock starts ticking when?
Well, we signed the paper in July. So we have to the end of December. So we'll be done well before that.
All I'm thinking is for consultants to do this work, March through July is pretty tight.
It is very,
Yeah.
I don't know that it's physically, like, space-time continuum possible.
Yeah. So we might have to slide it. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah. Cause when I read it, I wouldn't, yeah. So, I mean, it's totally up to you guys. But you may wanna, we gave you all a list of potential designers.
yes.
You may just wanna give a couple of them a call to say, hey, we got this project idea. How long would it reasonably take you guys to do it?
Yeah.
And just kind of do it, because they're happy to answer that without any favoritism or anything, to give you an idea about what it'll take. Because you're looking to bring them on board, right, with fairly short notice, depending on what all else they got going on.
Right.
And then you're trying to get it done in a few months. So just something to ponder. You may need some flexibility on that end.
Yes. Thank you for that, Chris. And,
Not trying to push, but I mean, just.
no, it's realistic. We have to be realistic, but I always start by being clear, like what you want, and then you adjust to the reality of what's available, right? But you do shape things by being very clear what you want.
And that outreach is firm. I mean, it's a phone call. It's not a.
Oh, yeah.
It's a quick.
Yeah.
They'll have the experience with it. I can tell you what to reasonably expect.
Thank you for that. And that's on our list actually for next week, is to get on the phone and we'll have some clarity about what we're doing, because we've begun this. Thank you. Any other comments, questions about the schedule or anything about the committee composition?
I hope I didn't just overengage you.
No,
I was
thinking the same thing here, like,
yeah.
maybe if there's a way to indicate that there's some flexibility in the schedule, you might have more luck with getting responses.
Yes.
CRP.
Especially if we get some reality checks from phone calls beforehand.
Yeah.
I heard that loud and clear. Good point. Yes.
So can you elaborate a little bit more on how the search goes for the consultant?
So first of all, it has to be done through a municipally approved process. Okay, so it's a town procurement. So I just have to say that.
Yeah.
So it's an RFP.
It's an RFP, and we have to send it out, and it will be posted as well. We can't just send it out. We have a distribution list, but we also will be posting it. There's places at the state level and where it will be seen. Yeah. So, and there's terms and conditions, which I did not put in the RFP because they're very specific. They're sort of town requirements, but there are terms and conditions with any. We always put the draft terms and conditions in the RFP out. So we did not put that in because we wanted to more talk about the content of the project. We'll give it about a month, for responses. We want to get it out by the 18th of December so that we can have responses by the 22nd of January. And then we'll rank them and review them based on the criteria that are in the RFP and select those for interview them and make a choice, based on that. So that's how the process would work. Okay. Anything, Karen, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I just want to say the proposal needs to stay out for 30 days.
Yeah.
To be competitive.
Right.
So that's why the 18th to the 22nd.
Yeah.
And when I met with some of y'all, I think Sue expressed that people really like the idea of local consultant. Local in this context means Vermont, New York, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, maybe even Connecticut, because you're going to need to cast a pretty broad net. But the main thing is, have they done work in Vermont? And a lot of, New England, and I don't know, when you're in Vermont, I know when I've had friends visit Vermont. Well, even when I look at the map, I look at oh, you go from here to here, it must be a whole day away when it's 30 minutes. But in scale, like New England scale, that's a pretty small area. So just in case there are expectations that you're going to be able to get somebody from southeast Vermont or something, you might, there are a couple, but you'll probably benefit from casting a pretty broad net. And if you put it on the state bid site, the other,
Yes.
yeah, they all look at it.
Yeah, it'll definitely go up there.
Yeah.
VLCT.
Yeah.
Mhm. Anything else about that? Thank you. So I'm going to shift a little bit about how we operate. Just going through this orientation package, and if you look at page 4, something about principles for how the advisory committee operates and participates. And this is out of such a general best practice that I've had in my career, but that I think is very relevant to this project. So one is really respect and inclusivity. We really want to hear from everybody, not just at this table, but in the community. And that means actively listening, valuing different points of view, and making sure that we give everyone who wants a chance to participate and speak, add something to it. So that is a principle. Another is we're going to try to stick to what we're doing. It's very easy for there to be creep outside of the scope of the project. You can always say, that's another project that we should do, but to stay focused on, well, what the intent of this is. And that's true even in conversations when we try to, hone in on things and to try to stay focused. Shared responsibility. We really want everyone, not only the planning commission and the advisory committee, but anyone who participates, to really participate and be accountable for making it a success. It's my job as chair to make sure meetings are run well and try to be inclusive and all of that. But I really, as most people who know who've done meetings with me, I really do welcome you all to help make sure that we're addressing what we need to, and that we've heard from everybody. Sometimes I miss that as the chair. And a constructive dialogue, one that means, what we're saying is really meant to contribute to the outcome. Even if it's a different point of view, that's fine. I find that the best solutions actually reflect a range of points of view. That's my experience. And then transparency is also really important. And in this case, I need to bring to your mind that because this is a planning commission meeting and a planning commission process, we are beholden to Vermont's open meeting law, which means transparency, and it's a good thing, and I believe in it. But its practice is sometimes complicated. So in this meeting, for example, we have to have a Zoom link, which is great. It makes it more accessible for people, but it's recorded, and that recording will be publicly posted along with the minutes of the meeting. We have to do minutes of the meeting, and they have to be posted. We've got 5 days after the meeting to get the minutes up and posted. Sometimes we take 10, but let's be fine. It means that the public can attend these meetings. So we have to notice them several days in advance, depending on whether it's a regular meeting, special meeting, but we have to post it around town. You'll see the agendas. It has to go up on the website. So we have to do that type of transparency. And allow time on the agenda for people to speak, which I did at the top of this agenda, as you saw. One thing I do want to say that's important is that the advisory committee, this is a little bit getting into your role, is advisory to the planning commission. The planning commission in the end is responsible for this project and what the content of it is. We listen carefully to our advisory committee and the community because we want that to be we want that to be the plan. But in the end, the planning commission will vote on things to the select board after we've heard from everybody and try to do our best to learn from and include perspectives. But we will ask you to please not engage in social media conversations about this project. You represent your own point of view. You're an advisory committee member. You're not the planning commission. And things can go sideways real fast in social media when you're trying to engage a public dialogue about things. Not everybody outside of this process is as constructive, right? And social media is very hard once it gets going, sort of pull it back in. And then we spend a lot of time doing that. So we would ask you to please not engage in social media conversations about this project. The planning commission refrains from doing that as a general matter. And we'd ask you to do the same. And also, if you're contacted by the media, whether it's the Commons or the Reformer or Vermont Digger or whoever it is, to let the town manager or myself know about that before you engage with them. Just again, to make sure we understand what is going out into the public on all of this.
So you mean literally before you engage?
Yeah.
Like in other words,
Yeah.
so I can't.
Say, can I schedule another time with you? I need to check. I think that
Exactly.
would be best.
Yeah.
And that you can only represent your own point of view, but even representing your own point of view can sort of in an unintended way undermine the project.
Right.
And then we get derailed. We have to spend time on that.
And it's optics, folks, as we all know.
Yeah. So media can attend our meetings, and they have all through the housing needs assessment. But it made clear at the beginning of the meeting who they were and that they were there and they were going to might possibly report on it. And open meeting law says, of course, they're welcome. They can do that, and they can have their own view of the meeting and report it. Right. So we're not shutting down media, but we're just trying to make sure that the messages and information going out is aligned with where the project is trying to go. I put in this thing a link to the open meeting law, and there's a little quick training if you just want to know more about it. It's my job as chair to make sure that we're complying with open meeting law, so you'll see me doing that, and our clerk, Mary, is working with the two of us are doing that. The last thing I just want to say is the issue of ethics. It shouldn't be lost on anybody doing projects in Putney. This is really important because we have had controversy in this town. It's true in any situation that we understand our role and what is ethical. It's required of me as chair of the planning commission to take ethics training to practice what I learned in that ethics training. But actually, it's a really good thing for everybody. It's just great to know what our best practices in ethics and public processes. So there's a link here to a training. You don't have to do that, but it's a good idea, especially when it's snowy and maybe you're at home and you have time. You know, you might want to take the 45 minutes to do the state ethics training. But it is a good thing. And what I have here on the last page is a link to that. And it is helpful for the town to know that anybody involved in town processes is taking the training. So you'll see a process for doing that. Again, you're not going to be quizzed or required to do this, but I think as a group that's really committed to the outcome of this project and engaging the community, it's a good thing. So those are just a couple of other orientation things. Comments, questions, Karen, is there anything you want to add to what I just said?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
So that was the administrative paperwork part of the meeting. Thank you. I want to invite Chris Campion now to address us a little bit about his thoughts about what we're about to do.
Sure. So thrilled you guys are doing this and appreciate the invitation to be here tonight. Oftentimes when we do town plans, right, you kind of create aspirational visions and goals and objectives and policies, and then the vision tends to like the actual literal vision tends to be shaded blotches on a map. And that can only get you so far. And especially when you're talking about a village, where you start thinking about the built environment and the nature of the spaces, right, that you're trying to create and the function that those spaces serve in the town. That requires design. Now, my background, I came into planning from public administration and landscape architecture. So I'm biased towards design, but I don't know, especially in a village context, how you do it otherwise, because you really do need a vision. And what I always suggest folk do, and when I came into this job, I was on the faculty, landscape architecture faculty in Mississippi State. it's really where I always recommend what you start is where I recommend a consultant start, is have a conversation about what is the function of the village? What is its purpose in the town, in town life? I'm sure you've heard this, the adage, form follows function. Well, so have the conversation about what role does the village serve in town life? What does it serve in the lives of y'all as individuals, as business owners, as patrons to the library, as patrons to the bank, as students at Landmark, as faculty at Landmark, as people who live downtown, as people who own, as people who rent, as people who, whatever your tenure is, whatever your perspective is, have that conversation about the multiple roles, as an employment center, civic center, social center, what is the function? And when I did my master's thesis at LSU, I kind of went off on this tear about, and therefore sometimes you need, if form follows function, you also need to design the function. And that's part of what you've already done through the town plan. But that should, in my mind, that should be part of the conversation you have. And then you can get into the conversation about what form does the village take. I would not be surprised if whatever firm you guys wind up retaining, if they were to tell you that your main street right now is designed to get vehicles through as fast as possible. How do you pause to even really see what's in Putney and want to stop if it's so easy for you to, those black and white, the sea of black and white and yellow signs that you come through when you're approaching a village mean nothing. It's, what changes like the traveling public's behavior is literally the nature of the form that you're driving through, right? So think about, visualize like, what do you drive through quickly? What do you drive through slowly? If you have tree canopy, if you have cars parked on the street, if the street begins to kind of pinch in and the travel lanes are narrow, there's more other things going on. That's what causes you to slow down. It's either that or flashing blue lights. And I would
enough of that.
and I would, and so what I would encourage you to do is, through this process, is have that conversation about the function of the village and then what the village form should be. And that'll also help inform the nature of, how the village grows and where it grows. And as you do that, it might make it seem less scary that the change you're talking about may be, that the idea would be to kind of have everything integrate as part of it's like a quilt or any other kind of fabric, right? Things kind of stitched together and come together to create an appealing whole. And so create, and then, so through this process, there are these things called charrettes, which are kind of a rapid design, just rapid engagement with the public to kind of get design ideas, and you put these things out there. For people to reflect on, and you come up with like a shared vision. Doesn't necessarily mean everybody's bought into the vision. Doesn't even mean it's going to be the final design, but at least you're starting to explore things like scale, texture, feel, sense of enclosure. And that way people begin to understand, what it is. You literally have a shared vision of what it is that you're talking about. So I think that's where you're really going with this process. And so, yeah, you'll have a plan. You can only go so deep with it at this point, right? Because at some point, as you adopt it, you're not necessarily, right now you're coming up with like a village plan and a village like expansion plan. You're identifying areas. At some point, you'll have to follow that up with like a detailed physical master plan, and then design and engineering. A capital plan on how do you do all this, capital finance. But right now, you're trying to kind of nail down that vision and the plan for where the village is going and how it might expand. And to me, it should be, hopefully for you guys, it'll be an exciting, fun process. And that may even be something that you talk about in this RFP, is that you want this to be, you're not going to have public engagement. And I don't know that you necessarily use the term, but you want it to be joyful public engagement. You want it to be something that people engage in and enjoy. This should be an enjoyable experience, not a slog. This is not, and this is no offense to town plans. We work on them all the time. This is not a town plan. This is not, and it may inform your policies, it may inform your zoning, it may inform your capital plans and lots of other stuff. But right now, I think the critical thing for you guys is really try to come together about what the function you want this place to serve and how you want it to feel. And out of that will come all these great infill ideas and expansion ideas, redevelopment ideas. Then it'll give you a kind of a target to really shoot for. One other thing I'll just note is, I mean, one of the things I would encourage you to kind of have the consultant do early on is share with the public examples of just precedent, really to kind of help communicate scale, so that it's early on in the process like that. And I would just say this is not like a detail, not like a literature review or anything, but just kind of like either in their own work or others, just show like examples of infill that are a similar scale to Putney. They don't even have to come here to do that. They can do Google Street View and see where you got vacant lots and existing buildings. And, but I'm just saying there'd be something early on that they could do to begin to give people like, here are examples of designs, and ideally designs are ultimately built at the scale of Putney. And here are examples of streetscapes that transformed, like right now, you currently have really wide travel lanes, parking, sidewalks. Here are examples of what communities have done to kind of, I don't like the term traffic calming because it just sounds so damn technical, but basically, create more of a pedestrian, a pedestrian friendly, person friendly, welcome to Main Street Putney, feel. And that'd be something easy for them to do, either through their own designs, and it doesn't have to be their own, but it's just other examples of transformations of the built environment to create a better sense of place. And then lastly, I'm hesitant to talk about this, but really have a conversation about kind of Main Street Putney's identity. And this is not necessarily branding. This is not, because sometimes in Main Street programs they go through branding, which is totally fine. I mean, there are benefits to that. But in this case, I think you really want to talk about like when you guys who live here experience this place, what is its identity? And if you design it for yourselves to serve your needs and by yours I mean the town collective, your needs as this village, as this Main Street, it'll be authentic. And then other people will want to visit, because some communities, what I've experienced is they design it for visitors. And then you wind up with this kind of Disney-esque silver dollar city, Dollywood. I love Dolly, but anyway. But you wind up with this kind of approximation of something created for people to come and visit. This is for you. And if you do that, that will create organically this draw for people, because it'll be a unique place, unique to you, and something unique for them to visit, right? It's not some false approximation of a New England village. You are your own New England village. And then last but not least, I know this is maybe a third rail. You don't have to do it, but just ponder in your discussions. You invite somebody from Dummerson.
We actually are doing it.
Are you?
Yeah, actually doing
Is that you?
it. I've actually had some conversations.
But I mean, I'm pro Dummerson.
Yeah, just because you do have that immediate connection, and decisions they make over there can have a profound impact on what happens here.
Vice versa.
Yeah. And I know that they have, really tough discussion around zoning and what to do along Route 5.
Yeah.
What to do with the property. So I know it's a hard conversation for them to have too. But it's not that they're driving your conversation, but at least they're your neighbors, and just invite them potentially. And you guys know best how to do that. And then the answer from them may be, we're not in a place to do that. And it's up to them, right? But just
Some outreach has begun in a conversation. It hasn't been no. So we need to know more.
There's things happening, Chris.
Yeah.
So Chris, I have a question. This might be a little bit premature, but it actually maybe will give us all something to think about after you've left. But I'm wondering to what degree, since this is a state highway, we can actually be visioning things. And what's your experience when you have that kind of situation where we're able to actually implement anything based on what the state wants to do?
I think, good point.
Had this conversation as a community before, and I think it really comes down just to whether or not the town of Putney wants to take over maintenance of this section of Route 5. If they do it, then we have complete freedom to do whatever we'd like to do, you know, any of the traffic calming, bulb outs, et cetera. But we would really need to once again do a cost analysis of that and see whether it's worth it. I mean, I think it's, Chris, I find it frustrating that, you know, once you sort of cede your control to V-Trans, the amount of input you have is really limited, and it's such a bureaucracy there that, you know, for instance, to get a crosswalk is, you know, it's a whole process.
It's taking
So this is what I would say is all this is, you're absolutely right. And the V-Trans policies drive me insane because to me, it shouldn't be an all or nothing. It should be, we want to do these things and it should be a maintenance agreement. We agree to maintain these traffic calming measures, but we're not taking over your asset.
Right.
But you may not be able to fight that battle. You can work with your legislators and others. I mean, Wendy Harrison is a senator. She is passionate about transportation. The state is now going through design standards. I know the budget is tight and yada, 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 but they shouldn't be trying to balance the budget on the backs of towns. And I will say that publicly. I don't care. But because ultimately to me, if it's their asset, they are responsible for the livability of the villages that their assets go through. That's common sense. And right now, a lot of that is driven by a 15-foot chunk of steel and a wing blade on a plow. So that is what drives the discussions about roadway design through villages. Is can you get that 15-foot blade through, and will the wing blades hit a tree or whatever else? And so here's the thing, you know, local control. With local control comes great responsibility and great liability. And so that it may be part of your discussion is, do you adopt it as a class 1 town road so that you're in control of your destiny? And is it worth the money to do it? Because and the answer may be no. But
yeah, for better or for worse, the answer was no after some considerable, you know, thought.
But now you're going to go through a vision, right? And so now you're going to come out of the other side of this thing, and now you'll be better informed. Like, is this an investment that we want to make in ourselves, in our place, to make this place that something that we're in control of, and we're not ceding it to the state or others? Or is it just, I don't know, it may just come right down to feasibility, and maybe something you have to phase in. So it's not an all or nothing, but but one thing I would argue, this can kill a project faster. I've seen it with wastewater projects and everything else. If you start with how much is it going to cost, honest to God, don't worry about that right now. Right? Because if you are, I don't know, if you're designing, if you have a home, an apartment, whatever, right? You have your vision for what you want to be, first, right? And then you figure out what you can afford. If you immediately start with, I'm not going to think about making this a nice space to exist in, because it's going to cost too much. Well, then, but I mean, I think it's just natural. You have these aspirations about what you want it to be, and then you figure out what can you actually do with it. And I don't think, so just, sure, it can be cost constrained, but I don't think that's what you're doing right now. But I hear that all the time. Like, we can't have sidewalks because we can't afford them. Right? Have you thought about how much it costs you not to have sidewalks? If you want people to move here, if you want people to invest here, what does it cost you to not do things, to not spend money to invest in the place? And I know this isn't easy. I'm not trying to make it sound overly simple, but that's just.
I'm going to just note one thing, and then I'm going to try to see if there's any questions for Chris, and then we'll, move on to the other part of the meeting. We need to look at the RFP, but I will note, because Route 5 is so important, and that's a V-Trans asset, right? They own it. And it means a lot to us how it's managed. Something that we have an opportunity to do that we're not doing as a community is Wyndham Regional Commission has a transportation committee where V-Trans plans for this area are talked about and priorities are set, or at least informed. And we have not had a member on that committee since Karen said that her plate was too full. She could not continue to do that.
It's a platter.
Yeah, exactly, or bucket or something. But the point is, we don't have anybody on the transportation committee with Wyndham Regional Commission right now. And I really wish we did. People said, well, why don't you do it? So I go, yeah, no, on my list. But I think it would be very great if we could find somebody in the community who would be part of that committee, because it's a good way to be in relationship with V-Trans and to know what's going on and provide intel back to the town manager, to the planning commission about what's going on. So that's an opportunity, and maybe I'm hoping an outcome of the comprehensive village planning, looking at our interface with V-Trans, that we find somebody who would do that, because as I said before, it comes down to relationships, Chris? Somebody's phone.
I just wanted to echo one more thing that Chris said about the charrettes. I participated in a number of neighborhood charrettes, and the idea of making them fun, I think, is really important. That, we have something at the school gym on a Saturday or something like that, and maybe similar to the RDC meetings, where basically, you can allow people to entertain any idea that they possibly have, with the idea that eventually we're going to corral this, but we don't want to give the impression that we're in charge of managing their choices.
Right.
So, I'm all for fun for the charrette.
Hey, if I could just add just a quick thing, to the extent that you're able and you can, I mean, you are blessed here to have a number of schools at different levels. And I get all age of kids involved in this. Frankly, they can kind of help diffuse some situations, and they may come up with some ideas that you haven't. And I don't really know my wife works at Landmark, in full disclosure, but I don't really know the relationship between Landmark and the town. But honestly, if part of your solution, you have a captive audience of a lot of students and a sidewalk that connects to them. People who can spend money and contribute energy and time, and so I would encourage you. I mean, it's your call and your all's relationship with each other, but I would just encourage you to bring those students into the process too. If that's doable. I don't know the town and gown relationship, but you guys right here talking about like what brought some of you here was Wyndham College, and how the saving of, the transformation of it into Landmark. And so I would just encourage you that, because and I don't know, again, you're already coming into the spring semester and other things, but another way even to continue it past this project, or if it does go into the fall, is if there's potential service learning or teaching opportunity here, to bring the students into there too. We're intentionally at Wyndham Regional Commission working with UMass Amherst Landscape Architecture and Regional Planning Program. We're working with the University of Vermont, working with the Conway School of Design, bringing those students in. Not only do they learn, who knows, maybe they'll come back and stay one day, but they also just bring a certain energy and enthusiasm and perspective that can really make a big difference in when I was a student at LSU, I got heavily involved in the downtown master plan. The ideas that I had ultimately resulted in a public market being built. And, there are things that bringing the youth into it can get you, and just create kind of a youthful enthusiasm.
Great. Thank you for that reminder. And we're very glad to have Landmark here at the table, and also UVM. So that's wonderful. And reaching into those resources for ideas and help, to work this through, I think is a wonderful idea how to do that. Right. I think we're gonna have to move on here to get into our RFP. I think we've talked about, the Planning Commission, Advisory Committee, and consultant and community member roles sort of in a general way. Rather than me talk anymore, does anybody have any questions about that before we start reviewing the RFP? In the FAQs that are in your packet, the frequently asked questions, have a discussion about the role of the Planning Commission, of the Advisory Committee, and consultant. So you can take a look at that, but, you know, you don't need to hear me talk more. But if you have questions, I'm happy for us to answer that.
So I just have a quick question. So we have this list of potential firms. But
Yeah.
I'm just wondering why this list exists if basically it's gonna be broadcast to everybody in New England.
To do exactly what Chris just said, call some folks up and say, this is coming. We
Okay.
want to talk to you about it. And if we'd had more time, we would have done this before. We just haven't had time to do it. Because I actually think everything that Chris said resonates for me. That, you know, you need to talk to people and get them interested in the project, and then they will respond, you know, if they feel some kind of connection to it. But I also put the list out here. We put the list out, not me. We put the list out because if people have ideas of other firms we should be reaching out to, we'd love to hear that. We are, like I said, on the phone on Monday, you know, calling folks about this and building anticipation that the RFP is coming. Do they want to see it? We have an idea of their kind of schedule and availability, you know. We will be doing that next week.
So this is kind of just priming the pump.
This is priming the pump. And, you know, it's possible that when you put it up on the state list, somebody will come through that we hadn't, you know, I'm truly open-minded about it, but
Yeah.
I like having a list and talking to them. It does help to create your own good luck sometimes by doing that.
Can I ask us maybe potentially derailing question around scheduling around this?
Yeah.
Given the holidays and the end of year, are we worried about this getting lost in the shuffle of the posting? And is there any benefit for it being up longer or anything?
Well, it's more than 30 days for
Okay.
one, you know, it's going out the 18th and they're due on the 22nd. So
Okay.
that's giving them several more days. I'll answer your question in a practical way. We're gonna get on the phone and we're gonna find out what people think about that. I don't love sending in RFP before the holidays. That's a problem. But I also don't want to delay the project. And if people need more time, they need more time. And if that means we're not starting this project till April, we're not starting this project to April. As I said, I start with my vision of what I'd like, and then we let reality, you know, set in and we will adjust to that. And I'm very realistic that it could take more time to get the right firm. Because I also agree, it's really important to have a good firm, one that we have a lot of confidence in, that's going to provide a fun, joyful, and productive, you know, charrette, but also help us really say, okay, what does that actually look like? And how are we going to, what are the next steps to realize that? And how do we de-risk development and housing in particular? I mean, that's really, we have a goal, right? Now it's going to be 4 years when we get to February. It was 5 years last February. To have 80 more units of housing. And a lot of that would be in the village. It could be anywhere, but the village is the preferred place and it's more affordable here for a number of reasons. 25 are under construction. Maybe 6 more will happen. But we really need to try to get to moving some projects. So I just want to say that's part of the urgency, but you can't go faster than yeah, we gotta go at the speed of humans, right? So, no, we'll get realistic about it. I think everybody faults me for being a little optimistic. But I can adjust and we'll adjust.
Can I ask a question, please? So I have not reviewed the RFP as of yet.
Yeah.
I wanna make sure, because you mentioned the 25, potentially 6. I know there's 3 going up on Old Depot within a year.
Yeah.
Does this RFP specifically talk about vacant buildings? And
it could be more specific
and
about that.
identifying infill
Yes.
with vacant buildings.
I'm not sure we talked about vacant buildings, so that's.
I think that's key.
Yeah. I talk about renovating existing buildings,
Yeah.
but I don't talk about their status as
Right.
vacant or not.
You're,
That can be added.
well, you're kind of getting, I would just argue, you're kind of getting the scope creep. Now you're talking about more, I mean, are you in control of those buildings?
No.
I think there's
But
Because you're talking about the village you're talking about the village design, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they could say, hey, you've got some vacant properties and here's some things that might make those places look better and, you know, that's saleable. But if you're really wanting to engage with the owners of those properties about not making them vacant anymore, that's a whole other project. You're starting to work with architects and others. I mean, I'd just be careful about, I mean, that can be something that they can talk about, but it's going to be a very brief chapter, probably in a much longer book. Not trying to steer you away from that, but I mean, that's a whole other, especially if you don't control the ownership. If you,
Yeah, that also seems like a potential problem where you have a lot of what I would call uninformed visionaries who suddenly think that they have a say about what we should be doing with every building in town, which has occurred.
It has occurred.
Not very
You're right.
productively.
Yes.
I was saying,
Yeah.
just looking at the RFP, just to chime in on page 3, kind of services requested in section C really gets into like, here's what we're hoping you'll do for us. So I think there's enough specificity there without being too much, right? So
Right.
when you're talking about sites for local business development, that's kind of covers, you know, existing as well as infill for business development,
Right,
and
but
then
not that
housing.
you don't have to have a specific
Sites for
vision
housing.
for those things.
Correct, so you're sort of saying it's sites for, so you're kind of inviting that as part of the vision, so I think that's probably
It's a
specific
piece, yeah, it
enough.
would be a small piece, but.
Right.
Okay, I bring that back.
But I would say any property would be considered in existing sites because there's a lot of properties that have more space on them.
Right.
Now, we can't tell people what to do with it,
No.
but we can put up the question that we need infill development, who's interested, where could this be happening? And then find out. I love the coalition of the willing, you know, that's a really great group.
where they might advise, like on the infill, like, right, is it may be what you don't want to do with that infill is have a Dollar General with a big parking lot in front of it, because that's going to destroy it. That will mess up like the main street feel. That's right, because walking past the parking lot's not as nice as walking past a building with a similar setback to what you already have and trees and that. And so they can advise on that and they'll, and so that's where you'll get some good guidance. Because in some ways you may have heard of form-based codes. I'm not advising you to necessarily go that direction. But you're probably gonna get out of this is more village form as opposed to this is what you do in this space, this is what you do in that space, and they'll come up with models and examples of like the scale of things and how they relate to the street, how the buildings relate to each other, how vegetation, how lights and other things might relate to all that stuff. That's probably what you're gonna get out of this. It's not so much like what do you do with your yellow barn properties? What do you do? You know, what do you do with, you know, these specific properties? What you might get out of it is some ideas, some design inclinations about, oh man, this is how this could really relate to the rest of the building fabric.
So it talks about sites and suggested housing types. So for example, to your point of form, you know, I think that is something we'd like to see because that's inspiring. When people can see what it could look like, then that's different.
I have a question.
Yes.
Sorry, to jump in, but also, so if we're looking in that page 3, section D, letter C, when you're talking about the streetscape, is there some way to indicate the complication of needing to look at V-Trans, you know, standards and meet with that? I don't know, just to indicate that it is part of
the reality check,
public highway. I don't know where you would say that, and not to say that it's not possible. Look, like I'm from Wilmington, and there are sidewalks, and it's a, you know, those things that we did some pretty impossible things.
I just suggest professionals can do that anyway.
That's true.
They're gonna look at what the rules are, and they will probably look at like, and in fact, if they have experience in Vermont, they will say, if you adopt this as a class 1 road, these are the options that you could do. If you don't, you're probably gonna stick with what you have, and this is what you can do in that context.
And there's a lot, I mean, you can do a lot more than you think. It just takes a really, really, really long time.
Megan, I appreciate that. I'm thinking that is maybe something to include in the following page under D. Where it says identify areas for village center and MBA extension with associated municipal services, e.g. water and sewer, including potential collaboration with V-Trans.
Yeah. And it could be useful in addition to that, to just put it on page 1, right under project overview. Putney, a town of Putney, a rural town, approximately 2,600 people, located on State Route 5. in Wyndham County. I mean, I think it puts it like, we are a town with a state highway, and that's
Not
our history.
uncommon, it's not
Not
uncommon.
uncommon, but it's, we could put it there too, you know, just.
I think that's a really good idea.
Mhm. Yeah.
And actually,
Mhm.
and that's, we call it Vermont Route 5. I was just confirming because I thought I was dreaming it. It's actually US highway, it's US Route 5.
US. It is, you're right. Yep. Operated by V-Trans. Which is.
Yeah,
really
state
own it
maintains
here.
it, but it's a federal, so yeah.
Okay, great. Makes it even more fun. Got it. Great, thank you for that. We're doing what we need to do because it's almost 8 o'clock and I really do need to shortchange any conversation. We'll take a few more minutes. We'll go a little beyond, but are there any other thoughts and suggestions? I wasn't expecting to do a page by page review of this. It's more to throw it out, to say, here's what we're asking for. It is to some degree, when you look at the tasks on page 7, I will just point out that those are the tasks that are in the grant application that funded this, the municipal planning grant from the Vermont Department of Housing and Community Development. And so we need to have those tasks done. Now, how they're addressed, and they don't have to be addressed in a serial way, the way they're listed here, but they're things, they're components that need to be addressed. So I just want to bring that to your attention, that's there. How it's done, what it looks like is a different thing.
I would just suggest maybe a new number 1 under project deliverables, which would be the design precedent similar in scale to Putney.
Say that again.
Presentation of design, or I'm trying to think of
That's part of the application, I think, where past performance on similar projects.
That's different.
Different, okay.
So what you want them to present to you guys and to the community is, it's not right, it's not
Yeah,
necessarily
the final
their stuff.
presentation here.
It would be, hi, here's, just an initial presentation of, like, even when they introduce themselves to the community, it's like, hi, this is who we are. We're gonna be talking to you about your village. And here's some examples of like the kinds of things we're gonna be look like. Here's an example out of Connecticut. Here's an example out of Vermont. Where this work has been done, so that people can kind of have an initial visualization about like what they're gonna do. And my brain is too tired to wordsmith it right now. But this is like this is a minor deliverable, but it's just like I think you may even characterize
It could be under
like
number 3.
introductory. Introduction to precedent of design and design implementation at a scale similar to that in context similar to that of Putney.
Great, thank you.
So it sounds like what you're doing is basically we're giving the public an introduction to something most of the public won't be familiar with. So you're giving them a little bit of a roadmap of like, this is who we are, this is what we're doing. Here's a couple of things that is gonna give you the sense of what we're gonna be approaching.
And related to that, another element that I didn't put in here, because I'm not trying to be too prescriptive, right? You do kind of take all the magic out of somebody's proposal by being too prescriptive. But when we get into what I call the second phase, we've done the visioning, we've got that picture, we're talking about how do we realize that vision, right? I could imagine that we once again bring in other towns and people to talk about their experience of how they have done it and what made it work. So that lays the groundwork for, what can Putney do? How can we learn from other communities? It's educational to the communities, not just to us, the whole community. And it helps us process that to create something at the end. So I can imagine examples coming up at the beginning, but also in this other phase of like, how do you do it? What's worked?
It's confidence building.
Yeah, that's exactly, yes.
Yeah.
And inspiring.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
If this takes energy away from other conversations, we can just dump it. But on page 2, 5th or 6th paragraph, as noted in the 2023 town plan, recognized historic district.
Yeah.
And then second, Putney must adopt historic preservation regulations, period. I think this may all be related to Act 181 changes to tier 2, tier 3 stuff that I
It is
don't
tier
think-
3.
Yeah, so I don't think, I don't know what its role is to this RFP.
Well, I'm.
Because you're not asking the consultants to.
I'm referencing it as a document, in the doc, you see that's at the footnote in that page there. I'm referencing that exactly.
Well, I don't
but-
see it, I don't know exactly, I mean, this is the most recent, I
Right, yeah, I
think,
was reading it.
181 propaganda. I don't know whether they know yet what the distinctions between tier 2 and tier 3 are, and whether having historic preservation zoning regs a requirement. It just seems like it's all kind of up in the air right now. We're gonna be a tier 2, I think, just if Wyndham Regional does what they're supposed to do. And then to petition up to tier 3,
Okay.
there may be more than simply that.
Okay, I hear you. So,
Sorry, yeah,
but it
and-
may be good to have the last second sentence after that. This is desirable that housing in historic district be compatible.
Sure.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's a,
Yeah.
just go with that. That
Yeah.
was, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Keep it simple.
No, that was thoughtful. I was trying to figure out. Say something about it.
Cause all the tier 1A, tier 1B stuff is just shaded areas on a map. It's not what you guys are doing. It's colors on a map.
Well, at the moment, I was just reading the requirements of like, how do you get to tier 3? What would Putney have to do?
Well, tier 3 is that, says tier 1A and tier 1B. Tier 3 is, that's the term for the, whether or not you're in an area, in a forest block or other things that trigger, that's.
Oh, okay, with the one I was reading, it's just more incentives are available when you have certain.
Yeah, there are very few towns in the state that will ever qualify for tier 1A, and Brattleboro is one of them. There's a few others in the state, and that's it. Your tier 2B is what you're shooting for.
That's gold, okay.
And that's a pretty low threshold.
Thank you. That was helpful to bring up. Thank you. See, every comment, I'm not kidding. It's not, bring it up.
You're talking Act 250 tiers, and we were talking about DHCD steps, which it's a lot of nomenclature here. So I think
I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about the, oh, sorry.
Yeah, for the
I thought you were talking
downtown
about the
program, like the village center
Yes,
program,
the
which
designation
is
program.
TBD, right? I mean.
Well, I'm just reading.
Yeah, I think like I said, this is
Yeah.
just a big energy, sucking conversation.
Right.
It's all up in the air. So
It
I
is
think
like
if you
nobody
eliminate
knows
that little
yet.
reference.
Nobody
it's
knows.
great.
I apologize.
I mean, I wonder if somebody knows.
Yeah, no, it's all good.
I think it's the LURB who's supposed to know about this or somebody.
Right.
Anyway, thank you. Again, any other comments, questions? We are at 8:00, but I don't want to cut it off. And if you have other thoughts after tonight, you can certainly share them because we're going to be working on it the next week to get it out the door. But I really wanted to see if it resonates with you as a general project. I appreciate the very specific things like Route 5, that's really helpful to put in there.
I
don't
suspect.
remember if you mentioned it's a scenic byway or not, but you made a comment.
I think there've been so many conversations for those of you who have been involved in this discussion for a while about how granular village plan might get. And I think there's been expectation that it's going to be a house by house inventory, with all the capabilities there. On one extreme to whatever, I'm more an overview of what the design history of the community is and where it might go and what those constraints are. So I think that as we begin to work with our consultant, we're going to have a lot more clarity about what their limits are, in the timetable. And it's a pretty tight budget. It's a very small.
It's not a big budget, right? This is a $50,000 budget. Sounds like a lot of money. It's not. And what I'm kind of hoping, and we'll find out, is that, federal money for projects has slowed down and some consulting firms are looking for work. And I'm kind of hoping that we might slide into somebody's, need, but we might not. But if they are looking for work, we might have both benefit on budget and schedule. I don't think we're gonna have a budget any less than this, but there's no more money. This is it. There is some town money that will support some of the community engagement, for example, and things like that, and making copies and stuff and all that, but.
Joe, is there any possibility of engaging, say, like my project, the funding came through through the Boston Home Loan Bank for the graduate students to do an assessment, which we estimated to be about $100,000 worth of work for an acre parcel.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering whether any of that whether either we're engaging in students as an adjunct to the project, or even just looking for, expanding it to that kind of input from a group.
Well, we have UVM here partly. I'm just gonna point out that Maria's here funded by UVM to come assist us. So we have some of that, but could we do more?
Yeah.
Good question.
You're too late for the spring semester. So you're really talking probably after this project is done. You're talking.
Maybe the next step.
Well, actually, the project that I did, it started in February, it was done by April.
But when did you talk to them?
January.
I mean,
it was kind of amazing.
It's possible, but usually most faculty, they've lined up their spring projects.
Yeah, I don't know how.
I've already lined up a few, and I didn't start the conversation back in October, so.
It's worth looking at, Christopher. Thank you. I mean,
Yeah.
I do hope that we can engage other resources across the whole thing. I mean, this will be a step in the journey.
Right.
It's a little bit why I'm trying to do it as soon as possible, because we have so many other steps to do, but it needs to be done right, and it needs to have the right resources behind it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Boston Home Loan Bank might be a place to just inquiry and say, how did that happen? And is it happening again this year or whatever?
Okay, and how that might happen. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah. Boston Bank.
I'm not poo-pooing at all. I'm just in terms of timing,
Yeah.
because I'm already talking to 3 different professors about different projects, and now they're getting into the semester. Anyway, it's a great idea though. The other thing too is once you come out of the other side of this, there may be opportunities there for master's theses, capstone projects, other things to further flesh out.
Right, for the next step.
It'd be great to have having both Landmark and UVM here right now, again, they can get built in.
Yeah.
There may be, Antioch is another school that could provide, value to us, Antioch University. So, great. I think we need all those resources, and it can help us go further and have actually really good ideas. The project, Christopher, the design for the affordable housing right over there is wonderful. It's exciting. It took 3rd place in the regional competition. It was amazing.
Yeah, literally, we got $100,000 worth of advice out of it. We're not. Yeah, we're not
and a real
required to work with that. We can start over from scratch. But the fact that they've looked at everything: architecture, design, planning, codes, financing. Just
that's awesome.
Everything. Community, engagement with the rest of the community, citing. It was pretty amazing.
It's great.
Well, I think we're morphing into this conversation that I wanted to just close with, if I can take a couple more minutes and call it the popcorn conversation, which is I'd like you all to, now that you've heard what we're doing and what this process is about, any advice you have for us, generally, whether it's about engaging the public, about who else to be involving, some element of it, whatever you might, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I wanted to see if there's any, now that you've heard this, it is getting late. I see some tired eyes, but any other thoughts, recommendations for us as we go forward on this? This has all been, we've got a lot of great input.
Definitely Dummerston.
Yes. Working it.
Route 5 corridor.
Yeah.
And I was looking at the RFP and feeling a little nervous about the timeline, like Chris brought up. I thought maybe think about what you would prioritize getting out of your relationship with the contractor and put that up front first. Is it the community engagement? And if that's it, make sure that gets done, and then maybe UVM can assist with some mapping or something like that. What is key for the contractor?
Got it. Yeah.
One of the deliverables you're saying that you have to have for the grant, but I feel like I think it's a well-written RFP, but maybe leading with kind of, right, that a little more specific of like the, priority, and then also there's, indicating flexibility for timeline. I think you've already said that, but that's kind of helping them understand like, well, where they have to lean into.
Yeah, maybe not estimated time allocation, but ideal timeline.
Yeah.
Is the required project close kind of suggested, the grant does have a end date?
I think we have till the end of December. This is a 26 planning grant. So I think we have to the end of.
It might be next year.
It might be 27, actually.
Okay.
If you have a little more time than you have, obviously time is of the essence.
Yeah,
If
it
you have a
might
little
be
more.
27.
I think it is 27.
I'll confirm it.
Yeah, because we signed the contract in July.
Mm-hmm.
So you have
Yes,
usually a couple of years to do it.
right.
Yeah, I think doing it well, doing it right makes sense. We want to do another municipal planning grant. But recreation. But again, do something well. If you do it well, and take the time to do it well. Not lost on me. Other advice, comments?
I really like what Chris was saying about form following function.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious about how do we get to that? How do we get to that conversation about function of the village? What are people thinking about how that might happen? But I think you were indicating that it could happen around these tables, but it could also happen in other formats.
Well, good design, and you could add it to the language, but a good design firm should, that should be part of it, because they're not, it's literally hard to design the form, like come up with that vision and see, figure out how do you want it to function, because that's gonna be part of the conversation they'll have with you guys about so right now it's very automobile oriented out there. Do you want it to be more pedestrian friendly, right? So that's a function. And do you want it, and also part of that pedestrian friendliness too will involve you'll want to maintain, kind of have similar building setbacks to what you have now historically, because that creates a sense of enclosure and the relationship between the public walked space and the front yard space and then the facade and then the lived in looking out space. They'll landscape architects, they're trained to do that. I would suggest that you'll definitely want to review who was on the design team, and this is not an engineering project. And frankly, I'm a planner, but this is not a planning project. This is a design project. And so to the extent I would have to go back and look at the RFP, but I think I would just emphasize design. This isn't a policy project. This is a project that will inform policies. You know what I'm saying?
What I'm getting at is I was thinking that we were an advisory group that could advise the definition of how we imagine.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They'll take you through.
The village, but I don't see that conversation happening.
They'll take you through that process.
But
okay.
I was thinking we would bring that to them as an idea, as an image. This is what we would like. Not so that there was a co-creating.
I guess what I'm saying, they're not bringing that to you. They're going to engage. You're going to tell them what that is. And so that's why I'm saying they'll take you through a process by which you tell them what it is that you're looking for. Is that making sense?
Or you learn.
Yeah, but does this happen in March then? After a consultant has already been.
Right, once they're here, then we're gonna have a conversation about how's this gonna go.
So, but this group will not be really deciding who the consultant is gonna be.
That's right. That's right. That's gonna be the town manager and the two of us will work through that. But once we have selected the firm, and again, that's why this conversation is so helpful, right? Everything that's here is very formative to what we're gonna go do. Thank you. Then we will bring them in and then we'll begin. And you'll be at the table with the planning commission in every meeting that we're meeting with the consultant. And you'll be in the public meetings with us too. We have the charrettes, what other forms public engagement takes. I have lots of ideas, but we'll form that together.
So I mean, this is sort of somewhere between Chris and Connie, I think, but I've always felt that the biggest obstacle to good design is zoning and codes.
Right.
And to me, it's not necessarily obvious to lots of people that that's what's impeding good community. And so I would suggest that in writing the RFP, that we make sure that we're kind of really understanding that we want to find ways of designing better community that will engage these things, but that it really is important that we're actually coming up with a design. A design, as Chris says, the design is really leading the process.
Oh, yes.
And they should come out and say like, here's what you told us you want.
Mm-hmm.
Here's why your zoning will let you do that. So you need to tweak your zoning. There's not a lot they can do on the building codes, but if you don't do the building codes.
No, but it's like if you take a community, it's like you take something like Seaside in Florida, it's like, oh, let's go back to having front porches so that everybody going down a sidewalk has a chance to engage with their community. I'm not saying we do that here.
Right.
But that's the kind of thinking that's sort of like visionary in a way of sort of like, well, what can we encourage in the town that, maybe it's even as simple as, providing seating or benches or someplace on regular intervals, playground where people can gather that encourage, social interaction.
That's right. And then phase 2 of this, within this project, we would like to have some ideas of what are, what's in the way and what can we do? Like we're not going to solve those things, but the roadmap says if you want this, these are some things,
Right.
How do we overcome obstacles to the infill development or the vision, realizing the vision that we want? And then we'll figure out what the next projects are as you were mapping out, Chris, that what it would take.
Yeah.
So there is a bit of a roadmap to like, all right, you want this, but what are you going to do to make it happen? That's what's different than other visioning projects that have happened in Putney. The question that was asked earlier, how is this different?
What we really want to do is actually change the DNA
Mm-hmm.
of how design happens, because if you're looking at codes and zoning and things like that being the obstacles, they're like, well, how do we fundamentally change that so that the solutions actually naturally grow out of a better, out of better DNA, literally. You're creating an organization that has the ability to self-organize into the future based on the fact that we've rearranged some basic principles of how things can grow in a community.
We're trying to do some of that now because we're updating our zoning regs right now, but it doesn't mean that zoning regs are never done, right?
Yeah.
Don't tell me that right now because I'm kind of wanting them to be done. All right, I think I want to wrap the meeting. This has been wonderful, but we're all tired and I do try to end more or less on time, going a little over. But thank you all so much for participating in this meeting and welcome to this committee. I'll get you the minutes and just a follow-up message about this, and I'll keep you apprised of what's going on so that you feel connected to it. And it might, and if it looks like we're extending the schedule a lot, you'll hear that soon. We'll know more about that in the next couple of weeks. And
Congratulations, this is awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Be proud of yourself. Just that you're that you're doing this is awesome.
Thank you.
All right. I will adjourn the meeting.